What's going on, everybody? I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. We're back for another week with your Simply session. We've got Nico coming in with all the latest and greatest in the news. Of course, I am on the road, so we're doing this remotely. I can't wait to get back home to once again touch the tips. And then after Nico is through with his news, I'm going to fill you in on the latest and greatest in the tech updates in and around Bitcoin. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your Simply session.
HODL the Bitcoin.
Before we dive in, quick shout out to sponsors of the show, HodlHodl.com. If you're buying Bitcoin and you have a few priorities in mind, like peer-to-peer trading, no KYC, and instant self-custody, then HodlHodl is the place to be. Simply sign up with nothing more than an email address, scroll down, choose a currency, a payment method, and an amount, and start viewing offers immediately. They also have a peer-to-peer lending platform, which nothing is ever rehypothecated. You can check them out today. A link is in the show notes. Now, when you are stacking non-KYC sats, you're going to want to secure them with the best hardware on the market, and CoinKite has everyone beat hands down. I love my Cold Card Mark IV. It is my go-to hardware device, and they have a ton of other awesome options like the tap signer, the sats card, the block clog, the open dime, and I can't wait for the Cold Card Q1 to drop later this year. If you want to reserve that or pick up any of the other items I mentioned, head to coinkite.com, use code BTC Sessions for 5% off everything in the store. If you're looking to go beyond single sig and look into multisig, check out Nunchuk.io and their assisted multisig program called Honey Badger. Basically, you can set it up on your mobile device very easily with things like the tap sign or the cold card and a ton of other hardware options. Once it is set up, they will have a single key and you will have the rest of the keys in a multisig quorum so that they can be your signer of last resort. Furthermore, it has built-in inheritance planning, so your sats get to your next of kin if anything ever happens to you. And beyond that, the whole thing is non-KYC, meaning you don't have to give up your personal information to set up and use their services. I love it. I'm using it. Be sure to check them out. Again, nunchuck.io. And finally, shout out to Start9, your sovereign computing solution. These guys are knocking it out of the park regularly. They basically have devices in which you can host your Bitcoin stack and your sovereign data stack as well. Everything from entry-level devices all the way to mid-tier, all the way to what I'm running, which is the Server Pure, an absolute beast of a machine. You can pretty much set up your whole Bitcoin stack on this thing, things like Bitcoin Core, Lightning, Mempool.space, Join Market. You can also host your data, files, passwords, photos, and things even like Nostr relays and Nostr clients, all kinds of great stuff. Be sure to check them out, start9.com. And with that, let's dive into the news.
Welcome to another episode of Simply Sessions while Ben is spreading the orange gospel in Europe. I hope he's having a great time. We're going to be holding it down. We're going to cover today's news. First, we're going to start with this tweeted video coming out from, I think it was Neil Jacobs. And Ben McKenzie, apparently he's this B-list actor, and he's taken this anti-crypto stance and, anti-crypto, but anti-Bitcoin, because he kind of commingles the two. Just very interesting. He's gone on CNBC, put his stake in the ground and basically said this thing's a fugazi, it's a fugazi, it's BS. Well, this is what I got to say about Ben McKenzie. Ben McKenzie, put your money where your mouth is. Short Bitcoin or just don't buy some, and let's have this conversation in 5 years. It's a lot easier to just, grandstand and say these things. But anyways, I'm going to play you this video and you guys will notice a couple of things that he commingles. So let's check it out.
Multiple people said this to me. And that is it possible that your hostility to crypto could just be a lack of understanding of the tech? Like, what do you say to the fact that real smarties like Mark Andreessen and other extremely wealthy, intelligent people think that this is the future?
Yeah, like Jack Dorsey of Twitter, who is obviously brilliant. I mean, he's rich, so he must be smart.
Yes.
And he was talking about hyperinflation, which was coming to the United States in the fall of 2021. And he warned people they needed to buy Bitcoin because there was going to be hyperinflation in the United States. We need to stop with his notion that billionaires are somehow smarter than us. Like, they may be smart about whatever it is that made them money, which they may have made in an ethical manner or not. But that certainly doesn't make them smart about things that they haven't made money on or whatever. These are just stories. Like, I know we want to say, if you say I haven't done enough research, my response to you is fuck you. I've spent 2 years investigating this. I've interviewed the head of your entire industry who's now alleged to have been running a fraudulent scheme. Like, what more proof do you need that I am right, dude? Like, I don't know
do
what
that
to
in one of those cases.
Yeah, I mean, they have internal Binance, the biggest exchange that's been sued by the CFTC and the SEC and has yet to be charged by the DOJ. Let's see. They have internal communications in Binance employees. And one of the Binance employees says to the other, dude, we're running an unlicensed security exchange in the United States, bro. That's a alleged quote from, I mean, man, give me a break. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't know what you're talking about. By the way, I'm getting triggered. The people that say that are usually, they go like, I'm not taking financial advice from a reality star. I mean, you idiot. You don't even know my career.
Okay. So a lot of things to unpack there. First, the hubris. Second of all, commingling, right? The crypto industry with the Bitcoin industry. The leader of the industry is CZ. The leader of the industry is SBF. I don't know about you. I still don't know who the Bitcoin CEO is. And then also the Jack Dorsey bit. Yes, he did co-found Twitter, but he also co-founded or founded Block, which is part of, I think it was Square, then it became Block, and Block has Cash App, right? So maybe if Jack was still maybe wrong about his hyperinflation prediction, maybe he's not right now, but we know that the dollar, they're going to print, they're going to continue printing an ungodly amount of money. I don't know when, but it's just a matter of time before people wake up like, okay, maybe this money is fictitious. That's when hyperinflation happens, by the way. It's not the amount of money the amount of money printing that causes hyperinflation. It's when society as a whole, the mass consciousness wakes up and realizes that the money is worthless. So again, I think this guy's a charlatan. Put your money where your mouth is. Bet against Bitcoin. Just don't buy it or short it and see what happens. Let's see who's right in that argument 5 years from now. And one last thing I'm going to say, he definitely has financial privilege because 60% of the world doesn't have stable fiat currencies. They're dealing with double-digit inflation, or they're dealing with tyrannical governments that censor them, that confiscate their wealth. Look at what happened with Lebanon. Look at what happened in Argentina. Look at what happened in Venezuela. So yeah, man, like Bitcoin is for them. Bitcoin is for them, bro, because if they used their state-sponsored currency, they would be absolutely wrecked right now. So shame on this guy, and I think he's a charlatan. And maybe he's just doing all this to promote his book. Anyways, in other news, this is kind of like an update. I hate that I have to cover this, but Dr. Craig Wright was once again basically called a liar. Here is his appeal that he did in the Dr. Craig Wright versus Peter McCormack. And the reason for that appeal, I'll read you the quote. Judges agreed with the decision of Justin Chamberlain to reduce his damages to £1 for putting forward, quote, deliberately false evidence on serious harm. So now we have a judge in the UK, a judge in Norway in the HodlHodl case, and a judge in Florida that have all called Craig Wright, basically they've accused him like, look, you've misrepresented evidence, right? So it's 3 judges in 3 separate jurisdictions that have basically said like, look, man, like, what you're saying is not right. So glad for Peter McCormack that he won his case. That's awesome. On other news, this kind of frustrates me a little bit. And the reason it frustrates me a little bit is the same reason that when this news came out with Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is the politician who's responsible for the Brexit movement, who you could say is against, the establishment, against the powers that be. And he was a very, very, you could say he's a divisive figure, but he's a popular political opponent in the UK, and he got debanked. And now you have Dr. Joseph Mercola. Apparently, Chase Bank has shut down his business accounts, along with the accounts of his CEO and CFO, as well as their family members, spouse and child. They refuse to provide any reason for doing so. The oldest account has been active for 18 years. And I'll get to why it's a little bit frustrating to me. But first, I want to read you a tweet by Whitney Webb. It says, major bank banning Mercola accounts is a sign of what's to come for any dissent. JP Morgan Chase is organized crime masquerading as a bank. It goes on to say they're moving fast to tie your money to your social media accounts, online activity. Say something wrong online, your bank account is closed. This isn't in the distant future. It is almost here. The new Twitter X is part of it. I've been writing about this for years. Check out my work on the Cantilionaire Conference, which I call the World Economic Forum, against cybercrime. This is their playbook. The FBI, the DOJ, the big banks are the key players. And look, it's just another indication as to why you need the separation of money and state. It's another indication as to why you should be, instead of complaining, you should take action and use the technology that allows you to store your wealth in a sovereign way, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the solution to this. There's a solution to this. You can complain. You can, you could say, look, this is what's going. But I'll tell you what, guys, I have a saying, it's Bitcoin or slavery. It's not hyperbolic. You have to choose what future you want for your family. A future in which there's a bureaucratic elite that get to pick and choose who's entitled to use money, whether they censor your money, whether they debase your money, or you have the side of freedom, which is Bitcoin, where there is no individual that could censor you or debase you, right? You have to choose an individual what side you want. This is just the beginning. This is where central bank digital currencies are heading. So here is Saifedean. He has his take. He says one of the many exciting possibilities offered by CBDCs is that if you refuse to take the highly profitable addiction your fiat doctor prescribes, pharma companies can quickly and efficiently destroy your finances. And of course, Saifedean was being a bit sarcastic here. But this is the future that they want. They want everyone using CBDCs. So instead of the government knocking on the bank and saying, hey, you got to close that guy's account, they'll be able to do that directly. It's not a joke. It is literally Bitcoin or slavery. In other news, the legacy corporate media, the propaganda machine, continues to attack Nayib Bukele and El Salvador. Here's this latest article by The Economist. It says Nayib Bukele shows how to dismantle a democracy and stay popular. If you want to take a look at how many articles they've dropped in the last, literally, it's like non-stop. What is the world's budding autocrats are learning from El Salvador? Inside El Salvador's war on crime. Nayib Bukele shows how to dismantle a democracy. El Salvadorian's authoritarian president is becoming whatever. And Nayib Bukele wants to abolish term limits in El Salvador. Well, let's take a look at China, okay? And the reason I'm bringing up China is there's an actual genocide happening in China, and that is the Uyghur genocide, okay? Chinese government is responsible for that. Let's take a look at the headline articles coming from The Economist covering China. So first, China hits back against Western sanctions. China's economy is on course for a double dip. Peak China? Is China power about to peak? How many trouble is China's economy in? Why China should be friendlier to its neighbors. China controls the supply of crucial war minerals. Like, this is so crazy. There was an article that I read yesterday on basically that came up how China controls their journalists. So in a country that actually has a totalitarian government, there is no democracy there. There's an actual genocide happening to 1 million Uyghurs. Look at how the legacy corporate media covers that, and look at how the legacy corporate media covers El Salvador. They didn't give a shit about El Salvador until El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender. And you have to ask yourself why that is, and Nayib Bukele wrote it so elegantly in this article that he wrote for Bitcoin Magazine. It says the most vocal detractors, the ones who are afraid and pressuring us to reverse our decision, are the world's most powerful elites and the people who work for or benefit from them. They used to own everything in a way they still do. The media, the banks, the NGOs, the international organizations, and almost all the governments and corporations in the world. And with that, of course, they also own the armies, the loans, the money supply, the credit ratings, the narrative, the propaganda, the factories, the food supply. They control international trade and international law. But their most powerful weapon is the control on truth. And they're willing to fight, lie, smear, destroy, confiscate, print, and do whatever it takes to maintain and increase their control over the truth and everything and everyone. So you want to know why The Economist is not giving a flying fuck, to be frank, about about democracy in China is because I don't think it has to do with anything about democracy. It has to do with the fact that Nayib Bukele is using an alternative to the fiat financial system. I think that's what it's all about. Anyways, guys, this was your Simply Sessions. I will see you next week. Ben, continue having fun in Italy, man. Take care.
All right, diving into the tech updates here. The FBI has seized a Mastodon server and is a wake-up call to decentralized platform users and hosts. So what happened here? Last May, Mastodon server collectiva.social was compromised when one of the server's admins had their home raided by the FBI for unrelated charges. All their electronics, including a backup of the instance database, were seized, and to make matters worse, it appears the admin targeted in the raid was in the middle of maintenance work, which left the would-be encrypted material on the server available in an unencrypted form at the time of seizure. Most users are unaware that in general, once the government lawfully collects information under various legal doctrines, they can and do use it for investigating and prosecuting crimes that have nothing to do with the original purpose of the seizure. It's a chillingly familiar story, which should serve as a reminder for the host users and developers of decentralized platforms. If you care about privacy, you have to do the work to protect it. Now, this is a tangential topic to regular Bitcoin stuff, but privacy is important. And again, this Mastodon instance was an anti-colonial anarchist collective that offers federated social media. Nonetheless, the topics at hand are not what's relevant here, but rather the censorship resistance and the ability to encrypt and privately converse with others. So in terms of censorship resistance, of course, we've got Nostr, and that was built by a Bitcoiner, no mistake there, I think. So in terms of things being shut down, like in this seizure, if that was one of the only copies of the instance, then they could take down that Mastodon server. I don't think that was the case here, but nonetheless, who's going to want to use that at this point? This would not be the case with something like Nostr. You just can't take it down because it's decentralized enough. However, let's talk about the messaging in and around Nostr, because a lot of people may not understand exactly how it works. There is actually a public record that there is information going between two entities. It is encrypted by the private keys of those individuals that are conversing. However, if somebody were to gain access to your Nostr private key, they could decrypt all of your messages, not just your end of them, but anybody that you've been interacting with and their replies to you. So you may want to go other places when it comes to encrypted private messaging. And something has come to my attention with SimpleX, and I've heard a lot of kind of chatting about this online. And the interesting thing about SimpleX is there's no such thing as user IDs. So things like Signal, Matrix, Session, Briar, a whole bunch of other options, they do have user IDs. SimpleX doesn't even use random numbers. And you can host this actually on your Start9 server and a bunch of other options. But again, why does privacy matter here? Advertising and price discrimination, manipulation of elections, prosecution due to innocent association. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to be private in your communications. So lots of unique things here from SimpleX. I'm going to be playing around with it and probably doing a video on it later on, just because I think it is relevant. But just keep that in mind when you're using decentralized ways of communicating, that things may not always be as private as you imagine. And again, SimpleX could be something that could be a solution in there, and it seems promising. So I'm going to dive into that later. Anyways, because I'm already here sitting on Nostr and I see a bunch of notes from Geyser, I want to bring them up next. Geyser has now integrated Zaps and has launched a grant for Bitcoin educational communities. So what have they done here? Geyser Fund, by the way, this is a platform, a crowdfunding platform that is Lightning native for Bitcoin builders, projects, and communities. They have now integrated Zaps. Users can now zap Geyser projects on Nostr from any Nostr client that supports Zaps and get recognized in the project's leaderboard, meaning that you can show up. It always shows like the top donors and all that kind of stuff and comments, all that. And now it'll be linked to Nostr and you'll be able to still see yourself there. It says the funding amount will be verified by our nodes, so Zaps can't be faked. Further to that, last week Geyser also launched its 5th Bitcoin grant aimed to support educational initiatives and community-based Bitcoin initiatives worldwide. It says the grant seeks to amplify the efforts of Bitcoin communities that are emerging across the globe, offering knowledge, education, and tools to promote participation in the Bitcoin movement. These are the people that would most benefit from Bitcoin, which can act as a shield. These are also those that are least aware of Bitcoin. That's from Mick, the CEO of Geyser. Said to fund the grant, Geyser has raised 1 Bitcoin thanks to generous donors and a partnership with Blink. Applications for the grant are currently open and will be accepted until mid-August. So if this applies to you, go apply for the grant. You might be able to get some sats to help what you are doing. All right, moving on. Mempool.space has put together a new tool, really cool, this clock interface that shows a whole bunch of different stuff, the fiat price, the priority rate for sats per vbyte, the mempool and unconfirmed transactions. And it's all in this unique kind of setup that shows the transactions basically being pieced together in the next block as they see what might be mined next. Really cool interface. It's just kind of rolling out, so it's kind of hidden away. If you want to see it and interact with it, head over to mempool.space, click on the graphs button up top, and then there's a little clock icon that you can click on and you'll be able to see this. It's obviously not fully finished. I think along the top they're still working on what that interface is going to look like, but looks really cool. I do have to give a little bit of shout out to I think they may have bitten a little bit of the style of timechaincalendar.com, which I use all the time. If that's the case, of course, huge shout out to Timechain Calendar and TC who built it. I do like the look of this, but you know, credit where credit's due. Let's move on. Cashu nutshell, ecash seed phrase backups. What is this? What is going on? First of all, Cashu is basically a lightning backed Chaumian ecash, meaning that you can have a lightning node hosting funds which people can use. It is custodial, meaning that the person running the lightning node manages everything, and then the users do not have custody of their funds, but in the process also gain from near perfect privacy. So there are major trade-offs there. What is, I'd say this is obviously nowhere near as good in terms of trust, in terms of holding your own lightning funds on your own node or running something like Phoenix Wallet, but the privacy is much above and beyond that. So, you know, just be aware of what you're using and why. It's also much better than using Wallet of Satoshi or something like that in its current form. Wallet of Satoshi being fully custodial, and on top of that, the runners of Wallet of Satoshi have a ledger system in which they keep track of what users have what funds, so they can actually get a picture of who owns what. If they were to implement ecash in the background via Cashu, then they would not have any information on what users have what funds. I think if you're using a solution like Wallet of Satoshi, even for small amounts, you should at least be benefiting from massive amounts of privacy doing so. Nonetheless, what has happened here? Previously, backups with Cashu were difficult. It's a bearer instrument, doesn't really work the same as Bitcoin and Lightning. It can be a little foreign if you're used to that type of system. So backups were difficult. It wasn't the typical seed phrase. Well, they now do have seed phrase backups. It says here, Cashu aims to be an open ecash protocol for the web built on Bitcoin. In order to fulfill this promise, ecash must become easy and safe to use. One of the biggest challenges in ecash lies in its bearer asset nature. If you lose your wallet, your funds are gone. Not anymore. In this update, we introduced BIP32 secret derivation and BIP39 mnemonics. You can write down your 12 words and store them safely, just like a Bitcoin seed phrase. If you lose access to your wallet, you can use your seed phrase to restore your balance. For now, this is only available in Nutshell, the reference implementation. However, we aim to provide the same functionality across Cashu wallets. I think that's fantastic. And again, I've got to give a little nudge to Wallet of Satoshi, maybe Blink and some of the other custodial wallet options. It would be fantastic if you guys were to implement something like this in your wallets. Again, if people are dealing with custody, they may as well benefit from privacy in the process. Let's move on. This one, oh my God, this really peeves me off, this story. The head of Chainalysis Investigations admits there's no scientific evidence proving their surveillance software works. Elizabeth Bisbee, head of investigations at Chainalysis Government Solutions, testified that she was unaware of scientific evidence for the accuracy of Chainalysis reactor software used by law enforcement. Bisbee was testifying in a case between the U.S. government and Roman Sterlingoff, the alleged creator of the once popular Bitcoin fog cryptocurrency mixer used to anonymize Bitcoin transactions. The quote here, Chainalysis clustering methodologies have not been peer-reviewed in the sense that an academic paper would get peer-reviewed with data and methodologies reviewed in a separate study by other scientists. Instead, Chainalysis reportedly judges its software accuracy using customer feedback, she explained in an unreleased transcript from June 23rd hearing. Historically, Chainalysis has not gathered and recorded in a central location false positives or false negatives because there is a design to be more conservative in the clustering of addresses. In response to the court's inquiry, Chainalysis is looking into the potential of trying to collect and record any potential false positives and margin of error, but such a collection does not currently exist. So basically what she's saying is, we have no fucking clue if our stuff works, and yet we're still pushing forward in using it with cases where they actually need evidence that could be used in court to charge people with crimes, and that is horrible and awful, and this company is garbage. And if you don't like what they're doing, maybe you should use some privacy tools, things like Whirlpool, things like state chains, things like Lightning, things like ecash, any PayJoin, anything to throw a wrench in what they're trying to do or what they're pretending that they can do. Moving on. Mutiny Wallet version 0.4.4 is released. Android version is available for testing. Basically, they have their first version of Mutiny Wallet up for Android. We are looking for a few testers before we set it up for F-Droid, which is an alternative app store. Feel free to test out the Signet or Mainnet version. Let us know if you have any issues. Mutiny is something that I really want to cover and do a tutorial on. I'm planning on doing it soon. What is it? Basically, it is a self-custodial Lightning wallet that runs in the browser, a web wallet. And so what can this thing do? Basically, you can send and receive Bitcoin instantly, no channel management or Lightning wizardry required. You own your money, you back it up in self-custody with a seed phrase just like normal. You can use it on any device, and everything you need in a Bitcoin wallet. It has one-tap zaps, so you can link it with your Nostr and zap people. It's uncensorable, meaning that you don't need an app store to get it. You can get it on any device that you like. It is open source. You can create an issue or you can fork it. It is self-hostable. You don't need to trust them. You can host your own copy of Mutiny Wallet for ultimate self-sovereignty. And coming soon, this is interesting, synthetic USD, so self-custodial dollar-denominated value powered by DLCs, and CoinJoin. You can earn yield by participating in collaborative transactions powered by Lightning Vortex. Damn, these guys seem like they are putting in the work. I do have Mutiny Wallet on my phone. I've been playing with it a little bit for a little while here, but it looks like I'm going to have to dive deeper. I might wait for some of these additional features to drop before I do a full tutorial, but I've got my eye on this thing and it looks promising. So shout out to Mutiny. Moving on. BTC Pay Server, they're thrilled to unveil the latest major update for BTC Pay, version 1.11.0. They have new reporting features, point of sale cart redesign, point of sale product categories, improved store creation flow, and forms on steroids, including things like shipping costs and discount codes. So again, BTC Pay continues to knock it out of the park. I love what they're doing. I love using them. I use them anytime I do events, things like that. And it's fantastic. I love what they've built here. So shout out BTC Pay. Keep killing it. Kudos to them. And then finally, Alex Gladstein, the Human Rights Foundation announces the Bitcoin Bounty Challenge. 20 Bitcoin are up for grabs in 10 UX improvements to Bitcoin, mainly focused on mobile wallets, requested by dissidents and human rights groups from across the world. Basically, if you're a developer and you're looking to earn some sats and help human rights groups around the globe, you need to take a look at this and check out the bounty and see if you can build something and earn yourself some sats, because again, that's a lot of sats up for grabs. No joke here. 2 Bitcoin a pop, a whole bunch of different stuff. So check them out. Shout out to Human Rights Foundation and their continued work in realizing that Bitcoin is a tool for human rights and freedom. And yeah, again, love to see it. Okay. And then a couple personal notes before we sign off here. Of course, I dropped a new tutorial earlier this week on Nunchuk Wallet, in particular their advanced features. I've got a couple other tutorials that I've done previously. This one explicitly deals with their advanced stuff. So their coin control stuff is insane. It is so granular. You can do things like labeling individual transactions, adding tags to your coins saying like, oh, these are KYC'd or non-KYC'd or from a certain entity, whatever you want. You can also add collections of like, oh, these are from exchanges, whether they're KYC'd or non. You can basically organize your coins however you want. You can lock individual coins to make sure they're not spent unless you explicitly unlock them. They've also added child pays for parent, so if you receive a transaction from somebody and it's slow to confirm, you can still spend, and the fee from your spending will subsidize the fee from the incoming transaction. You can also do transaction batching to multiple recipients at once. I also go through the node connection screen where you can connect to your own node, and I use my Start9 as an example. And then I show scheduled transactions, which is exclusively for people using their Honey Badger assisted multisig. Either way, if you're using Nunchuck and you're unfamiliar with any of this stuff, check out the tutorial. You may not realize how many awesome features you have at your fingertips. And finally, this is actually in the future, as I'm recording the news right now, but I do have a episode of Why Are We Bullish with Daniel Prince from Once Bitten Podcast, with Lena Seish, creator of LittlHodlR comics and stuffies, and Joe Hall from Cointelegraph. Again, the news will drop after I do this episode, but I'm sure it was a blast and you should go back and watch it or listen to it and share it around. Anyways, with that, let's wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, please do like, subscribe, share. All those things help a ton, getting this content in front of more eyeballs. If you want to help with the show in another way, you can hit up the previously mentioned sponsors in the show notes down below. And if you really liked what you saw, head over to my website, btcsessions.ca. There you can get a lot of free information. You can also book me for one-on-ones if you need some additional hand-holding through all of those tutorials. And if you really, really liked what you saw, scroll down a little bit on the same website, btcsessions.ca. There's an LN URL. You can send over some sats via Lightning or click on the actual box. It'll take you over to my Geyser fund page, which we were talking about earlier. You can zap me sats there. You can leave messages and notes and stuff, which I do love seeing. And you can do it directly from Nostr as well. With that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or evening, wherever you may be. I'll see you guys next time for your Simply Session.
HodlHodl the Bitcoin.